Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Donnie and Dolly, a presentation of Able Auctions. It is Thursday. Today's guests, including Farhan, standing by, brought to you by Optic Foliar. The only lights-on spray with no damage and no burning to your plant leaves. Plant efficiency, nutrition, and results all combined into a single solution for all stages of growth and safe to use on flowers. Spray it, see it, believe it. That's Optic Foliar. Visit this Made in BC company online at opticfoliar.ca. We're getting a lot of this. Sean from Medicine Hat, just before we get to Farhan, Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox, listening to the podcast version last night, doing food delivery. He had to pull over laughing so hard from the motorboard Fez segment. We've had all sorts of shots of Rick Dollywall, photoshops from our great listeners and viewers of you wearing a Fez. We'll try to get to those later. In the meantime, difficult segue. We're going to make it. Farhan Lalji joins us from TSN. How are you, Farhan? How are you dealing with the snow?
I'm good. The kids are excited. They got a snow day happening, so they're pumped up. I get to deal with them again for 24 more hours, much like I did yesterday. And, you know, the Fez is a good look. The vest, also a good look for Rick.
Yes.
The vest is, I love the vest. It's nice and warm. It keeps you, fit and fiddle.
Fit and fiddle. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, we talked about dealing with the snow. Farhan, I see you peppering Bruce Boudreau with questions. What's he like to deal with?
He's good. He's a lot of fun. You know, he's a guy that doesn't necessarily take himself too seriously in terms of how he comes across. And, he's got that self-deprecating way and, wants to come across as just everybody's uncle, right? And doesn't, wants to tell you that he's just not that smart, but he actually is quite bright and certainly different than Travis Green. And look, I like Travis a lot. Travis came across quite often as quite dismissive in his press conference settings. But as Rick will tell you, when you get him in a different setting, he's a pretty decent human being. So we've had a lot of good interactions with coaches here in a number of sports. But Bruce is different, but a fun change of pace.
Elias Pettersson in COVID protocol, Farhan. We talked about this yesterday before that story broke, though. His issues right now, do you think they're mostly mental or physical?
Mental, because if you look at, everybody wants to talk about the wrist as part of the problem, and maybe it is to a degree, but if this was simply a case of Elias Pettersson not having enough on his shot, I buy it more, right? I mean, to me, it's so much more process-based. We don't see a player that's trying to create and do the confident things that he did in his first 2 years. So when I just look at the process of what he has and hasn't done this year, I think it's completely between the ears.
Farhan, let's get this straight. They're on a great run right now, and everybody is loving it. It's important to play Ottawa because after Ottawa, like I mentioned, 10 games in 19 days, but more importantly, their next 7 games after Ottawa, all against teams in the top 10 in the overall standings. We're going to find out what this team's made of on this upcoming road trip.
Yeah, we are, because, there's a lot of different ways to put what's happened in the last 9 games into context. Now, certainly the Canucks have done better. There's no question about it. But they have taken advantage of teams on the second end of back-to-backs from time to time, backup goalies from time to time. There's been a lot of that. Now, look, their form has been better. There's no way around that. The PK has been better. The forecheck game is something that's been, obvious to see that that's something they generated more off of. And I like the way they're playing that way. But, you're going to add a certain amount of what they've had success-wise to the Boudreau bump. Now, they did that for the first 5 or 6 games. Then they had a break. Then they had 3 more games. So you kind of take the bump effect out of it in the last 3 games. And now you're going to play elite teams. So if you can continue, do I think they're going to win or go on this kind of points percentage run? No, I don't. But I mean, if you can come out of that 500 or even 550 or 600, you got to feel really good about yourself at that point, given the competition you're going to be facing.
Farhan, I want to get in a football question. Geroy Simon left the BC Lions to join management of the Edmonton Elks. I was going to call them the Eskimos. Your thoughts on him leaving? Was it just a simple case of he was never going to get the GM job in Vancouver?
Yeah, I think more than anything else, Geroy needed the next step. Like, he's been a guy that's been mentioned for a few GM jobs here in the last couple of years, and he's got the name value for sure, but ultimately you don't go from the role he's had in BC the last couple of seasons to the GM job. You need something in between. And I think that's what he's going to get in Edmonton. And, people are like, well, how did the Lions let him go? They've got Ryan Rigmaiden here on the personnel side, and Ryan Rigmaiden's exceptional, right? And he's done it before in terms of acquiring talent that way, negotiating contracts. And, he's probably a little farther ahead on the management experience side, the U.S. contact side at this point. It's not to say Geroy can't do it. He just hasn't had the opportunity to do it, whereas Ryan has and has done it well in previous stops. So for me, Geroy needed that opportunity, and he wasn't going to get it here. He'll get it in Edmonton, and he'll be so much better for it. And I think his name is then going to be front and center at the top of most people's lists the next time GMs come up for grabs. Maybe not 1 year from now, but in 2 years, I think you're going to see Geroy Simon as a GM in this league, especially if Edmonton has the success that many believe they'll have under Chris Jones.
I know we talked about this before, Farhan, but down south across the border, Russell Wilson, it just seems like almost a done deal that he's going to leave Seattle. A lot of money owed to him. We know the state the team is in right now. Do you believe that? And if so, where's his best landing spot? We saw what happened with Big Ben on the weekend, a goodbye party for him. Where's his best landing spot, and is he going to leave?
Well, for Russell Wilson, I'm going to believe it when I see it, right? We've had this conversation not just last year, but it's been a theme for a while because, when you look at the Seahawks offense, they've had multiple years now where they've had like a great first half and a bad second half or vice versa. And people have wondered how much of it is Russ, how much of it is Pete Carroll, the coaching style, the offensive system style, Carroll wanting to be a run first guy, Wilson wanting to throw the ball more because he's a legacy and this and that. So I'm going to believe it when I see it. Do I think there needs to be a party? I think so. But I think a lot of people are scared of that. And you can't blame them because when you look around to teams like the Cleveland Browns that have an average Baker Mayfield, but they've got a really good defense and they've got a really good running game. And you've got teams like that around the league that seem to be a quarterback away, whether it's Miami, whether it's New Orleans, right? I mean, to me, if you're looking at destinations, and if I'm Russell Wilson, that is the single number one landing spot. You've got a good defense around you. Michael Thomas gets back. You potentially have a good receiving core. Kamara is a great dual threat back, and you've got a brilliant offensive mind in Sean Payton. So if he's going to go somewhere, that's the place for him to go in my mind. You talked about Chicago a year ago. Then they draft Justin Fields. I don't know that Pittsburgh was necessarily on his list, but, that's a team that's got some good pieces. But I don't know. Like Pete Carroll doesn't want to move on from Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson says he wants to stay. But there's a big part of me that believes it is time for a change in Seattle. But I just don't see Pete Carroll going full rebuild, going full youth, trying to draft a quarterback and then groom him. The guy's 70, right? And there's no obvious number one overall pick or a guy that's a franchise quarterback in the draft. There's some guys with first round grades, but there's no obvious number one pick. So unless that guy obviously falls into Pete Carroll's lap, I just don't see it happening. And to be truthful, if they're going to make that decision, they've got to make it before free agency. They can't wait until the draft. So I struggle to see it happening.
Okay, so quickly, Farhan, just something you said there. Is it time, and I can't remember, somebody on our show mentioned this last week or a couple of weeks ago. Is it time for Pete Carroll to go? Maybe Russell Wilson stays and Pete goes.
Yeah, you know what? You could make that case, right? I mean, Pete runs a very good organization. He's a player's coach. He does a lot of things right, but he does have an antiquated way of playing offensive football, right? I mean, it is an old school approach that maybe works a little bit by exception. Maybe he hasn't had the right guys. Maybe he sees enough in Rashad Penny these last 5 games that makes him think, okay, I finally got my guy. I just think that in today's day and age, you look at the numbers, you need teams that are more aggressive. You need, throwing the ball is a much more effective way of moving the football. Now, people believe that there's still a debate about whether or not Russell Wilson can be that guy. We see him in the fourth quarter running around and throwing the ball well previously, not as much this year. And we think he can do that for 4 quarters and 40 attempts per game. I'm not sure he is that guy. So, but I think Pete does need to evolve a little bit because every time he tries to get a new offensive coordinator, it's still a run first thing. They've still got to do it Pete's way. That's tough for an OC. And so I think if he's going to stay, he needs to change really what he's doing offensively.
I didn't say Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year, buddy.
Yeah,
appreciate this.
Big guy.
Thanks so much, Farhan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Happy New Year to you guys and Hendo as well.